At 6:37 on the morning of the 19th of October 2025, the radar room aboard the destroyer USS Samson lit up when an unknown contact appeared, moving extremely fast over 380 nautical miles off the coast of Acapulco. In the quiet patrol zone of the Pacific, a small dot was streaking along, and the Combat Command Center understood this was not a guessing game. Within 20 seconds, the watch officers confirmed it was a low-profile, high-speed small boat, skimming the wave crests like the tip of a knife. No flag, no signals, no radio replies. That silhouette and behavior said it all, the kind of boat drug trafficking gangs commonly use to outrun nations. On the infrared screen, dark dots began to fall off the suspect boat's stern, small packages tossed into the water, not fuel, but evidence being discarded. In the pilot house, Commander Matthew Harding did not hesitate. He didn't need a courtroom, he needed action. Every station switched to battle condition. Romeo deployment was ordered immediately. 90 seconds later, the MH-60R helicopter, codenamed Reaper 1, lifted from the deck, banking toward the southeast and streaking away like a silver arrow. Below, the suspicious boat gunned its engines, cutting the sea into chaotic white streaks. It was trying to disappear from view, but there was a truth the fugitive hadn't yet realized. The destroyer USS Samson was not here by accident. It was part of Operation Pacific Watch, a large-scale maritime narcotics interdiction mission led by the U.S. Navy. Today, they were about to intercept a shipment valued at $58 million, and those aboard the little boat had not yet recognized the storm closing in. Reaper 1 raced at 120 knots, flying just over 200 feet above the sea. This was no sightseeing flight. Inside were the door gunner, thermal scanning systems, and a U.S. Coast Guard law enforcement tactical team. They had trained this scenario hundreds of times, and today it was time to act for real. As the helicopter closed in visually, the high-speed boat below began making sudden course changes, zigzagging wildly, then accelerating full throttle to the west. Engines screamed. White spray boiled aft. But the whoop-whoop of the rotor was closing in, drowning out the waves. Men on deck began to hurl cargo overboard, chaotic and desperate. One package exploded as it struck the hull, tossing up a white plume of spray. Reaper 1's infrared locked on the target. Down below, the men finally looked up and saw the giant shadow above them. No signals, no replies, no slowing. Their chance was gone. The order came through. Warning shots. The helicopter banked hard left. The door gunner slid out, took steady aim, and squeezed the trigger. Rounds impacted only a few meters ahead of the bow, driving the single message home, "Stop now." But the boat kept running and continued to jettison cargo. From USS Samson's command center, Commander Harding gave a firm order. The target still refused. Disable the engines, fire was authorized. A second later, Reaper 1 shifted course. The gunner aimed directly at the engine cluster. Bursts punched through fiberglass, sparks flashed and died. The boat lurched and lost speed abruptly. Smoke rose and blurred the horizon. It did not sink, but it had been put out of the fight. Over the radio, a calm voice announced, "Target disabled." The boat was no longer maneuverable, drifting adrift in the ocean. The men on deck lifted their heads, this time not in defiance, but in surrender. But the Navy's mission was not over. Reaper 1 hovered above to keep watch, while two RHIBs from USS Samson's port side left the deck, carrying a specially trained BBSS boarding team to approach, inspect, and seize. The fully armed tactical team moved quickly and with machine-like synchronization. Within 4 minutes, they would reach the target, and from that moment on, this was no longer a chase, but an operation to arrest, recover evidence, and enforce the law. What happened next required not just speed, but precision and strict adherence to international rules. 2 men were arrested, roughly 30 years old, sunburned, sweat and fear plain in their eyes. They knelt on the slippery deck, hands behind their heads, eyes fixed on the circling helicopter. They carried no weapons, but what drifted in the water around them was more dangerous than any gun. Dozens of tightly wrapped bales floated around the boat. Some were waterlogged, others still pristine with markings. Each bale was marked and logged by the boarding team. A Coast Guard officer boarded, and when the 2 suspects were handcuffed, legal custody transferred. Under international maritime law, a stateless vessel is considered without nationality and may be boarded. That meant inspection and seizure authority passed fully to the U.S. side. The vessel had refused to confirm nationality and ignored warnings, so the Coast Guard immediately assumed control. Testing kits were opened. A small sample was cut from a bale and swabbed. When the test strip changed to bright blue, the result was clear: pure cocaine. A total of 47 bales over 1.5 tons were recovered. Estimated wholesale value $8 million, and triple that on the black market. The two suspects were read their rights in accordance with U.S. maritime narcotics procedures. No one said a word. Meanwhile, the boarding team continued assessing the condition of the boat, now nothing more than a derelict at sea. Hull cracked, engines destroyed, no communications, no life jackets, no tow capability. An officer reported the vessel severely damaged, two in custody, evidence secured. On USS Samson, confirmation signals were sent, but the mission was not finished. Stopping the boat was only the first step. The rest had to be dealt with. Cocaine confirmed, the boat classified as a maritime hazard. The mission now was not merely arrest, but removing a danger from the sea. USS Samson did not loiter in the Pacific by chance. Its presence was part of Pacific Watch, coordinated between Northern Command and the U.S. Coast Guard. The operation monitors the entire trafficking routes from Central and South America toward North America, intercepting suspect vessels before they near U.S. territory. Today, that coordination brought USS Samson to the right place at the right time to cut off a multi-million-dollar smuggling line. That also means that when a warship confronts a stateless smuggling vessel, the issue is not just tactics but authority. The Navy has reach, firepower, and pursuit capability, but it cannot arrest or seize cargo without Coast Guard legal presence. And today, that coordination functioned flawlessly. That's why the Coast Guard's Let It was embarked on the destroyer. This is an elite group of law enforcement specialists deployed aboard Navy warships. When a vessel is confirmed stateless and carrying contraband, command transfers from the Navy's 3rd Fleet to the Coast Guard chain under District 11 Inches, California. The process happens silently but is critically important. Within minutes, the mission shifts from combat to law enforcement. For USS Samson's crew, it's a familiar but still risky procedure. The DDG-102, designed for missile defense and anti-submarine warfare, assumes a very different role. Operation Pacific Watch demands extreme flexibility. Radars no longer scan only for missiles or subs, but also hunt small suspicious boats in a vast ocean. While Tomahawk tubes stay silent, RHIBs take the lead. The combined model of Navy strength and Coast Guard authority has become the gold standard for maritime operations. However, one problem remained unsolved. The seized boat could not be moved broken and full of oil and fiberglass shards. Towing it hundreds of nautical miles was impossible. It was a drifting hazard. By 9:45, the mission shifted from seizure to controlled destruction, beginning the final phase of the operation. The high-speed boat was now a floating carcass. Fiberglass hull split along the chine, engines shattered, no anchor, no lights, no pumps. Towing it 380 nautical miles was impractical. In that condition, a single heavy wave could turn it into a drifting menace, puncturing a freighter's hull or fouling a fisherman's propeller. A boarding Coast Guard officer on site declared officially the vessel was beyond operational use and recommended controlled destruction. Commander Harding nodded and ordered the finding logged and preparations made for scuttling. On USS Samson, destruction is not an act of aggression, but part of safeguarding maritime safety and the ocean environment. The boarding team returned to the boat and removed any usable equipment. Empty fuel drums, GPS units, steering controls, all recovered and cataloged. All cocaine was sealed and chilled in the evidence locker. The two suspects sat quietly in Samson's brig, eyes vacant, knowing their voyage had ended. An RHIB returned to the scene carrying a small explosive charge strapped to the damaged stern. It was not meant to create a large blast, but to punch a few deliberate holes so water could flood in. At 10:12, a clear order echoed from the bridge: "Detonate on my command." Everyone waited in silence. A dull thud sounded. No flames, no smoke, just a soft crack, and the surface of the sea closed over. Calm returned, only the steady thump of helicopter rotors above. There were no cinematic explosions. The Navy's objective was not spectacle, but to remove a hazard, clear the waters, and send a clear message. If you dare move narcotics across international waters, the price is not only your cargo but your entire vessel. This was not simply a seizure, it was a statement of force. What happened on the Pacific today demonstrates how the United States projects power without launching missiles or crossing borders. Every detail of the operation was executed with near-perfect precision. A warship, a helicopter, a boarding team, and sealed legal procedures. But behind that success lay a deterrent message. Trafficking corporations rely on calculated risk, and every seized vessel is a warning that no voyage is safe anymore. The interception, 380 nautical miles offshore, sent a strong signal. The United States not only defends its shores, but proactively shapes the battlefield hundreds of miles out. And USS Samson, built for anti-submarine and missile interception, has become a frontline weapon in the fight against transnational crime. That flexibility is no accident. The Navy's multi-mission doctrine allows a destroyer to switch roles within hours. Yesterday, it defended in the Sea of Japan. Today, it intercepts a drug boat in the Pacific. Samson is not merely on duty. It embodies a posture, presence, approach, and pressure wherever necessary. Every lookout for the trafficking gangs tracking U.S. fleet movements learned one more lesson. Even billion-dollar warships can appear unexpectedly astern. And when the U.S. Navy shows up, they do not chase, they interdict. No missiles, no bloodshed. One destroyer, one Coast Guard team, and $58 million worth of narcotics wiped from the map. But here's the question. If you were the commanding officer of USS Samson and the smuggling vessel refused to stop, what would you do? Fire earlier, block with RHIBs, or let the evidence drift and hope for luck? Share your decision in the comments, Commander, because every choice carries its own consequences. This is not an isolated operation. The Pacific is heating up, and similar pursuits are only beginning. If you want to see how destroyers play cat and mouse with smugglers, join the fleet, subscribe to the channel to stay updated as things get more dramatic than ever. By joining, you don't just support this story, you help us tell more real offshore operations. Hit subscribe, become part of the fleet, because next time it might not be a drug boat, but something far more dangerous. And if you ever thought about running the seas, better pick waters without destroyers. Just a little piece of advice.